Thank you.
That's
All right,
the
with that,
best.
we will call this meeting of the Public Works Committee to order. We have a quorum. I think everyone is here,
Everyone
possibly with the
except
exception of Gayatri. Is she here?
I do not see Gayatri, but everybody else. And for whatever
Yeah.
reason, I had a note that Carrie wouldn't be here, but she clearly is. So
She clearly is.
what a happy surprise.
Yeah, I think I was going to be on spring break, but decided not to.
That didn't work out, huh? It's
Yeah.
more like a late winter break.
I know. Yeah.
Yikes.
All right,
Yeah,
well, in
so
any
we've got
event, we have-
everybody except Gayatri.
Okay, so we have a quorum. Our first item of business is the minutes of March 14th.
This is Robert Burke. I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
This is Carrie. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion with respect to the minutes? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it and the minutes are approved. Second item of business is Terrace Avenue crosswalk enhancements at Middleton Street. Sean, do you want to run through the
Yeah.
material that you provided us on this topic?
Sure, and maybe I'll skip to one of the drawings. Oh, I guess I don't have a.
No, there was
I guess I
one.
don't have a good
Right.
drawing. I've got a.
That's the
I've got a
closest.
passable
Yeah.
photo instead. So this is kind of the well, this isn't kind of. This is an aerial photo of the current situation, and I gave you a little bit of history where the sidewalk used to be, and unfortunately, short distance just west of and around the corner a bit. And so as we expanded this parking lot years ago, we moved the sidewalk to the intersection itself. Now there's been some interest in also painting the crosswalk or doing something else to help people visualize that there is a crosswalk there. Although I drive through there a fair amount because our city staff cars are parked against this corner of the parking lot. So it's kind of on my way to and from city business often enough. And it's always struck me as visible, like any intersection crosswalk. But I'm open to thoughts that are different than my observations, certainly. But that is, in part why this is on the agenda. We talked about it last time in terms of should there be a mid-block crosswalk someplace further west entirely to cross away from this intersection, but it got voted down and this got put on the agenda instead.
Sure. I've been through there a lot recently. I actually just walked through there this morning. And I've never felt a need for a crosswalk there. It is where I cross. My concern with a crosswalk is, when you're heading south from the parking lot and heading back down Middleton Street, everything's easy. You can see the traffic in all directions. When you're heading north, from the sidewalk up toward that parking lot, you have to look over your right shoulder to understand who might be coming up around that corner from Middleton Street to Terrace. And the concern I would have with a walkway is that I can see somebody, including me, just saying, oh, crosswalk, I have the right of way. I'm just starting to walk around. And I think that would be doing a disservice to me and my family or anyone else trying to cross there to just assume that a car driver would see the person on the sidewalk and stop in time. I think it's better, honestly, to have the two sidewalks exactly where they are, not identify it as being an official crosswalk, so at least the pedestrians kind of think, I should look around me before I step out into the street.
Oh, and let me interject here. For legal purposes, the difference between a a painted crosswalk and an unpainted crosswalk,
Sure.
there is no legal difference between the two. And from what I've found, I don't have a study that supports that there's even a safety difference between the two. So any extension of a sidewalk is in fact a crosswalk. It's just either marked or not marked.
Okay. Well,
But from a legal
I'm
perspective, I just wanted to clarify.
thank you. I guess I feel like marking it may give people, whether it's legal or not, may give people an opinion that they can just keep walking. And I know they can, but I think it's wise to have at least some type of subconscious imperative, if nothing else, to kind of say, oh, I'm stepping out into a street and it's not marked as a crosswalk. And I'm going to look over my shoulder just to see the traffic coming from all directions. And then just from the reading material that you supplied, it doesn't sound like this is something that we would typically choose to mark, anywhere else in the city. So I guess I would wonder if there would be a need to mark it here either, if that's not our standard to mark a crosswalk in these types of locations.
Well, Robert, I would disagree a little bit. I don't think there's another intersection like this in the city. It's not an intersection, really. I mean, I visualize this as being, a long block with a curve in the middle of it. That
Absolutely.
goes from South Avenue down to Parmenter Street. And there's not a crosswalk in the middle of that expanse anywhere. There's a crosswalk at South Avenue. There's a crosswalk down at Parmenter Street. This, for all practical purposes, is a crosswalk. I mean, it's got the ramps on both sides. And it's just unusual in that you don't anticipate, a lot of people who haven't been through that many times before, like you have and like I have, you don't look behind you when you're approaching a crosswalk. And that's what you have to do to see oncoming traffic that is headed north on Middleton Street. And it's a frequently used crosswalk. There are a lot of kids that go back and forth to the library and what have you on that crosswalk. And I don't know whether paint solves much, but I think at least there ought to be a sign like there is at a mid-block crosswalk, other mid-block crosswalk, saying pedestrian crossing, or the little dude that's, walking out in front of the street or whatever. So I think a crosswalk there, whether it's painted or not, we can talk about, but I certainly think there ought to be a sign at least on northbound Middleton Street. There's pretty good sight lines coming from the other direction, but motorists can't really see that there's a crosswalk there when they're coming to that intersection from Middleton Street. And pedestrians might well not think to look directly behind them to see if there is traffic coming.
Sure.
So I see a couple of hands up. Susan?
Yeah, I like what you said about this intersection being not present in other places in the city. There actually are two of these in Middleton Hills, but only one of them that has crosswalks, and it's near the city park. But in that case, the crosswalk goes diagonally across the curve. So if you were the pedestrian, you would turn to the sides to see cars coming. So I was wondering if it could be changed, bring the sidewalk a little further to the east on the north side so that you go diagonally across the curve. That would help on visibility. But I've got to admit, I've got a lot of concern about little kids walking here and not fully aware of how careful we need to be at this intersection. A lot more dangerous than the mid-block crosswalk.
It seems to me, Susan, if you angle that crosswalk the way you were suggesting it, that you have to look even farther behind you. The traffic's going to be coming close to directly from behind you.
Well, you'd be looking to your side. You'd look to your side instead of back.
Which way are you angling? Oh, you're angling it that way. Oh, I see.
Yes,
I thought you meant angle it so that you didn't have to build a bunch of new sidewalk, because otherwise you're gonna have to extend that.
no, you would have to extend the sidewalk, and I don't know if that can be done. But getting it going across the curve, I think would make it a little safer for people to know to look to both sides. And Don, you're familiar with the curve I'm talking about.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, and I agree. If you're at an angle, you can see both directions. True.
Anyone else?
Can I speak?
Pardon? I see another hand up, but I don't know who it
Yeah,
is.
I'd like,
You're welcome to
hi,
speak.
my name's Heidi. Yeah, my name is Heidi Schalk, and I live on that corner in the blue house and have for 34 years. And I have seen the traffic patterns shift significantly over the years. It used to be a big concern because of the brewery. There was a lot of speeding traffic around the corner. And I think that the intersection has been made safer by there being a four-way stop at the corner of South and Middleton, which was something that we all pushed for many years before it actually happened. But I am concerned that the sidewalk actually goes down at an angle, and that a lot of children on bicycles with training wheels, sometimes not, are riding along on that sidewalk in front of their parents, and a car that would be coming from the north going to the south would not be able to stop in time to see a little person on a bicycle crossing at that intersection. So I am concerned about that intersection. I think it's amazing that no one's been injured. Again, I think because there is a ramp, that even, that it would be a child who would be most likely injured. And I don't see what harm there would be in putting up some sort of a light or a sign or something warning cars that there is a pedestrian cross. Just don't see how that could harm anybody. I know this has been, I've
I think we've lost her, perhaps.
Yeah, her connection must have dropped out. She's no longer a listed participant.
Well, I mean, it just seems to me that if you look at this, Sean, like a mid-block crosswalk, at least putting signs there would be well within your policy. It's like mid-block crosswalks everywhere else. You wouldn't need a sign coming from the east on, or coming, excuse me, from the west on Terrace Avenue, but it certainly seems to me that you would enhance safety for motorists and for pedestrians if you at least had some warning coming in that other direction.
Yeah, and I think I'll put the policy to the side just for now, but if we put up some sort of advanced crosswalk warning sign, we also have to put a warning sign at the actual crosswalk itself. That's just a rule.
Okay.
And
I'm
don't
sorry
recall
I
any-
cut out there.
and I don't recall.
I
any
don't really
specific-
have anything else to say.
Well, go ahead and finish what you wanted to say. You did just kind of disappear on us there for a bit, so we,
I was just gonna say that I'll just listen.
well, Sean, why don't you continue saying what you were saying, and maybe she'll get
Yeah,
me.
so if we wanted to warn northbound drivers that there's a crosswalk at this corner, we would do it with an advance warning sign and a sign at the crosswalk itself. And often, I don't know that we have to, and I can look into that, we would then put a warning sign in advance of the crosswalk and then a warning sign at the crosswalk. So typically for a mid-block crosswalk that we think deserves warning drivers about, like there's something unusual and special here. That usually takes 4 signs to do that.
Okay,
John, is there land there that the sidewalk could be extended?
I think, well, let me zoom in just a bit more, but I think we kind of own that property. Oops, sorry about that. Yep, squared down. So this green space here is still
Okay.
within right of way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so we could extend the sidewalk.
Yeah,
And
I
make
think what
the-
some people would understand is, they're going out of their way to some degree to just to
I know,
cross
but
the
it's a
street.
lot safer that way.
Yeah, I would fully expect some people are just going to then take to crossing the street without the ramp.
I know, that's what bothers me. And is it true we've got more children using this sidewalk because of bus problems with the school district?
Yeah, I brought that up last time, Susan.
We've
I
got
live-
lots of,
So yeah, there's the buses have been consolidated, and
Yes.
I don't know if that will continue into next year, but so there are more kids coming from the other side of, on this map or whatever, on the other side of the railroad tracks coming over. And then the bus stop is at South and my gosh, why am I blanking out? What is
South
this
and
street?
Middleton?
Terrace, right?
Oh, Paris.
Yeah, so the bus stop is at the corner there. But even without like the buses, I know there's a lot of kids just going to the library and downtown, right, from these neighborhoods. I know my daughters walk on the street all the time to go to the library. So yeah, I think that is like my concern as well, is there are a lot of kids using this crosswalk. Sorry, was somebody else going to mention anything? I thought I heard someone.
I think Heidi might have been saying something.
I was just saying that that's true. It's really the only sidewalk to get into town for, all of the streets to the south of here, all of the neighborhoods, because there's no sidewalk on the other side. And the next street that people, we get a tremendous amount of foot traffic. The older kids who are walking, I'm not as concerned about. It's the younger kids on bicycles who are riding ahead of their parents, who sometimes are out of control, who I'm afraid, because people already try to cut off the corner, take a sharp turn. So sometimes they don't go all the way around the corner. They, they hug. So I just think there's a great deal of risk for a child crossing at that intersection. And I wish that there was something we could do, because I would hate to have someone injured. And it's how everyone goes into town from this part of Middleton. Was on that sidewalk.
there's one other point too, that I have noticed walking that, and that is just sound differences. If I was going north on Middleton Street toward that parking lot in my old 1940 Ford, everybody would hear me coming behind them. But there are a lot of cars now that are electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles that as they're slowing down to go into that curve, they go on off the gasoline engine, and you can't hear them coming either.
Oh, that's an important concern. Because people rely on hearing to make decisions. I am in favor of either making it diagonal so that you can the pedestrian can easily see both directions, at least from the side, or putting in the activated flashing lights.
Oh,
Well, we should talk about that then too. I think that those rectangular rapid flashing beacons are really effective where we have put them.
Mhm.
When we first started, we had tried putting them on fairly busy roads with high pedestrian traffic, so that we had a lot of autos and a lot of people, and we wanted to give fair warning to these drivers that there was somebody crossing the street. This would feel to me like we're getting into territory where we're just, every time somebody has some sort of issue, let's put up flashing lights. And without any guidance to me, I think that's just going to cause trouble sooner than later.
Okay, so you're not in favor of the flashing lights.
I think until we have a reason to start putting them in, I'd rather stick to pretty high traffic areas instead of low traffic areas.
Okay.
And-
Sean,
and
do you
if
Make
we-
the sidewalk diagonal?
I'm sorry, Don.
no, I was just gonna raise my hand. My question would be, do your pedestrian crosswalk signs that are pre-pedestrian crosswalk signs, can we get those with just a yellow beacon so people see it? As opposed to, yep, there's another yellow sign, and they just zoom right on through.
We can, we
Just
used
a,
to,
flashing.
yeah, we used to have some beacons at several crosswalks. They haven't been very effective. I think pretty much anything that's always flashing really doesn't draw attention. What gets attention is something that changes. So the pedestrian actuated ones are much, much more effective than the
Okay.
flash all day, every day kinds of things.
All right, any further discussion on this item?
Sean, could you point again where the signs would go?
So if where we have a crosswalk, we put a sign right at each edge of the crosswalk with a little arrow that points down to tell the driver, oh, the crosswalk's right here. And then in advance of that, we just put a regular pedestrian crosswalk symbol on a yellow diamond. So in advance, we're telling drivers there's something unusual coming up. Be prepared for people crossing the street where you would not otherwise expect a person to cross the street. And then right there, we point at it with an arrow that says, here it is.
Then
Okay.
where would you put the one northbound?
Well, it probably wouldn't be on this picture, but it would have to be shortly after the South Avenue intersection. We'd have to start warning people. I mean, people that drive here on a daily basis probably already know they need to slow down and look out for pedestrians, but we'd have to put it well in advance of the warning sign itself.
How
I don't know
much,
exactly where.
how much distance from the curb do you need to plant the sign pole? Because along there, both of those properties, I think right along there, if I'm not mistaken, at least the new house up on the hill has a stone wall that goes down almost to the curb. There's not very much terrace space there at all.
Yeah, usually we have to be at least 2 feet behind the curb.
There's not 2 feet.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there is, but the right of way looks like, now we'd have to confirm it, of course, but the right of way looks like that wall might be
I think
in the
there's
public
2
right of way.
feet.
In which case we could put the sign behind the wall on just a really short pole, so it would still be sort of the same height above the road.
I think, well,
That would be too high.
Well, if it's on a really short pole, it would still be 7 feet off the ground.
well, maybe farther toward South Avenue, there's a little bit more terrace space, but where that new house was constructed, I think that stone wall comes down very close to the curb. But in any
Yeah.
event, that is something that could be determined easily enough, but you need
Right.
about 2 feet.
Yeah, typically. Mhm.
I think there's 2 feet along that whole length of, it's a old concrete block wall. And their stonework is up higher on their property. The only stonework that comes down to the street is they have some stone steps, but there's about 2.5 to 3 feet between the edge of the concrete wall and the curb, all the way along all the way along Middleton Street on that side of the road.
Okay,
It's only cut out 2 places where the Schaefers have their walkway and where the neighbors across the street have theirs. And then there's a driveway that's for the house that's right at the corner. So obviously there's no, the driveway doesn't have a wall, but I think there's room for a sign.
Robert, you have your hand up?
Yeah. I'm not opposed to signs at all. I think I like them a lot better than putting a painted walkway in place. I also would caution against changing that walkway to go, diagonal out into the curve, because for a while I was actually on Madison's Transportation Policy and Planning Board, and we learned through a lot of case studies that anytime you make somebody walk farther to get where they want to go, it doesn't happen. They just ignore it completely. And that's, I think Sean mentioned it that a lot, or somebody mentioned it, that, and I would even be tempted to, instead of walking toward that house that's on the far, on the eastern corner, I would probably still cross the street going, straight north, or once I'm not in a crosswalk area, or, I might even cross diagonal as the other direction once I look over my shoulder. I don't know that I would want to go that much further out of my way. And I think that's very typical from what I've seen in past studies, that you can have all the best intentions in the world, but when you tell people to go a direction that they don't naturally want to go, they make their own path. So I would caution against extending that northern sidewalk over toward the house on the northeast corner, because I don't think it will be used that way.
I agree with that. I think there's just nothing over there that anybody would be going toward. You can't get through the parking lots. You can't get across the railroad tracks if you're angling in that direction. You have to go either straight ahead or angle the other way. And I think that's where people are going to go.
But if we left it kind of basically the crosswalk exactly where it is now, and just put up signs for additional warnings to car drivers, as well as for, a sign that helps everybody understand that this is where the crosswalk is, both pedestrians and automobile drivers, that probably won't hurt anything. It probably would help. So we can take a look at that if people are interested.
I agree with that, Robert, in terms of like the minimal, I think should be the signs. I kind of think the paint would be helpful, just as another visual to kind of tell drivers like, people cross here.
Well,
I
and that-
understand your concerns though, that it also maybe indicates that people shouldn't look around. Like, I don't know. I guess I could go a little either way on that, but.
Sure,
Well,
me too.
We've not, at least as far as I'm aware, installed a sign pointing down at a crosswalk that's not marked.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say the other mid-block crosswalks, which is kind of how I envision this thing, that I'm aware of, have the lines painted.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
if we were going to put up a warning sign, it probably is such a crosswalk that we'd want to paint it as if it's mid-block.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. Does anyone have a motion they wish to offer?
This is Don. I'll move sidewalks and paint, or signs and paint.
All right, we have a motion to install, that would be 4 warning signs and to paint that crosswalk where it exists now, correct, Don?
That is correct.
All right, is there a second to that motion?
Let me
This is
just.
Carrie, I'll
clarify-
second.
Oh, thanks. Can I just
Sorry.
clarify that that would be a committee directive then as an exception to city policy? And,
Sure.
and maybe offer the reason being that it's just a 2-leg intersection with a sharp bend in it? Just something
Yeah,
that
it's
makes
2-leg and
this
it's
somewhat unique.
Yeah. And
You
it's unique.
consider that to be one long block, then it's just a mid-block crosswalk in conformance with city policy, isn't it?
If it were a mid-block crosswalk, yeah, unfortunately, the street name change makes it an intersection, but I'll add that into the notes
Okay.
too.
Well, there really
that's-
isn't an intersection there. It just changes
Yeah.
name as it changes direction.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I think if you think it would be better, Sean, to list it as an exception to city policy, that's
I have
probably,
no problem with that as the motion maker.
And then I'll, yeah, add in, what makes this kind of different than every other unmarked crosswalk that we've got in the city. So,
Okay.
okay.
all right, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
I didn't.
That's Robert.
Robert?
Robert, all right. I think the motion carries then, and Robert, you wish to be recorded as a no vote?
Sure.
Okay,
Okay, so I've got that at 5-1 then.
5-1.
Okay. Anything else? Did you want to talk about RRFBs sometime or different time?
I don't for this.
Not in relation to this particular intersection?
Not me.
Okay. Well, that should do it then.
All right.
So that, ooh, let me zoom out here again now. So that brings us up to the Acre Farm subdivision proposal. And this is a referral from the Plan Commission. I can zoom out so far, it won't be legible, but at least you'll be able to see it. And that might be handy. So in overall context, for those that can see the little hand symbol floating around, this is the end of Bellefontaine Boulevard where it meets High Road. And then off to the east side of the road is Pheasant Branch Road. So the subdivision goes through the former farm of Edwin and Apollonia Acre, for those who know where Bird Lane is. And so this would be an extension of Bellefontaine Boulevard. We've been talking at Bell Farm on the other end of this thing. That would extend through and start looking north toward Balzer Road. If that helps orient you some. Beyond that, it's mostly the Plan Commission looking for feedback. So this is a second version of the concept that we're now looking at. And I'm happy to zoom in and pan around for legibility.
Sean, I have a question about this one. Is the only exit and entrance into that subdivision the extension of Bellefontaine? Or does that thing that seems to end close to Pheasant Branch Road right there, is that, I don't understand that green line there. Is that a dead end or will that be an exit on the Pheasant Branch Road?
Oh, I'm certain that's intended as an intersection. I think the green just tripped over the black, but I think the black comes through to Pheasant Branch Road. If not, it will.
That still isn't very much entrance and egress from that fairly large property.
It's
Nick, if
not a
you look at the
lot.
notes, Bob, you will see the fire department had the same comment.
I noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, so there's only two ways to get into it.
Right
And
now.
that means you're going to have to do a lot of turning to get to places.
Well, one of the comments that someone made, I can't remember, Sean, if that was yours or the fire department's, is that there ought to be perhaps another exit out onto Pheasant Branch Road farther to the, I guess that's north.
I think there was a note about it being at the
Sean, would
north.
it make sense to look at the next one?
Well, the
I mean,
next,
the next one is different, or which one is more accurate in terms of the concept?
so the one we're looking at now is the current one. The next
Oh, okay.
page is a previous concept. That's the one that the Plan Commission was looking at in early February.
Yeah,
And using the Plan Commission input, the developer changed the concept to this one.
yeah. Well, there's a number, I mean, there's also more comments like that purple line that, saying we don't want all those
Cul-de-sac.
intersections with Bellefontaine.
Yeah,
And
that's a policy level question. I don't know. That's probably a good one for this committee to take on is,
Right.
we want a lot of intersections with Bellefontaine. The rest of Bellefontaine has been laid out such that we don't want a lot of intersections.
So how does this work with the current? I mean, what is the current Bellefontaine master plan with there isn't one, is there? I mean, with the county? With the county owning that land? I mean, so the Bellefontaine is going to end right here. Is that appropriate place for it to end? Or don't we know?
It'll go further north and probably connect to Balzer Road and hook east. So it won't go through what's now the county's land over by Fredericks Hill there, north of the
Right.
hill.
So is that going to work?
Yeah, the planners have been working on a different alignment, and this meshes with that different alignment.
Okay.
Now it's not on the official city map yet, but I think we're working that way with the planning group. So yeah,
The north
this
south road.
would at some point continue north.
Yeah, that's an easy and obvious connect. What about the one north-south road that goes
Here,
to the east, that one?
Could that go north also?
I don't know yet what might happen with future development up in this area. So I've been kind of leaning on planners to give me some guidance about that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've got to admit, I've got a problem with only two ways into it. I'm thinking this is similar in size to Middleton Hills, and that would be really bad. There'd be just lots of traffic inside that's sort of unnecessary.
Well, and at least as far as Bellefontaine is concerned, remember what's been approved now for that Bell Farm subdivision, where that road got cut down in scope considerably and is now this curvy, hilly sort of snake trail going back down toward Parmenter Street. This is going to add a lot more traffic to that.
Yes, and I've got concern. Sean, can you zoom out so we can see the whole block of it?
Let me give that a try.
Yeah, because I've got a concern with that red area for senior living. And again, it's comparing to Middleton Hills. We've got a sort of one definite Middleton Glen is definitely a senior area. And as we know, they want to be able to get out and walk. And this doesn't look that friendly for people walking, especially elderly, and having to potentially cross Bellefontaine to get to any parkland. So I think that needs to be, or for anyone to get to parkland, depending on where they're living, they might have to be crossing a rather busy road. I've also got some concerns about the stormwater. I know we don't deal with it, but it seems to all be concentrated in two little spots. And I'm not convinced those are the best places for infiltration.
Well, I think
But-
the Water Resources Commission weighed in on exactly that.
Yeah, I would
issue.
suspect they would. But I think it needs, a neighborhood this dense needs to be extremely pedestrian friendly, especially without very much parkland or green space, because the lots are going to be small. And just in big picture, I would put some more bits of green space that people could easily go and actually enjoy, not what looks like ways to get water to places.
Yeah, those are all drainage swales coming down through there, Susan, it looks like.
Yeah, that doesn't give the recreation part. And as Don, as you know, we've got people walking all over and enjoying the green spaces.
Mhm.
And with this size lots, that needs to be very important.
What are the other greens that are in there? The bright green is park, but then there are several different shades of darker green in various places. Is that intended to be open land, or what is all of that?
The developer's here tonight. That would be a fair question for someone else to address. I don't
I can
know.
answer that. I'm Bruce Morrow. I'm with Smith Group and Chad is the developer. He's on the line. So we are adding more parkland from this. After talking to the Parks Group, we are going to add more parkland in the south. So there is more park to come. The light green is the public park, which would count as parkland on your, by your definition more. And the greens are greenways and there are used for water infiltration in part of those. And there are also trail systems through there for people to circulate through the park system. The green that you see along the Pheasant Branch, if people are questioning why, that was, city asked us to put that in there. There's an existing right of way there, so we added that in for them. We added the connections at the top here too for the roads. They wanted those connections. They wanted us to increase connections. But the green, those are the greens. The yellows, the bright yellow area, those are park homes. I mean, those are cottage homes, and those will have some dedicated green space for those areas also that aren't showing up. I can show you a picture of a concept of those, but those will be surrounding a park. And the senior family will be a series of buildings. They'll have some green space, and there is a greenway connection here. You can see it between the red and the bright green. There's a green space there that is made to connect to the system and connect the parks in. One of our driving forces of the design was to bring Pheasant Branch into the development through these greenway systems and connect them to other areas. So the stormwater question is that our hope is to infiltrate much before we get to the blue areas. The blue areas are more about the control of the water. At some point, water comes to the bottom of the hill and we have to control that water. We put those out more as maximum sizes, so we had enough space allocated. But at this stage, we haven't done full calculations because it's just a concept plan, right?
I have another question. It's about High Road. And since that's in the town of Springfield now, will it be developed as a road with sidewalks on both sides eventually? And who's going to be paying for it?
Do you mean the part that's in the plat or the part that's outside the plat?
Well, I think right now we just have to talk about the part within the plat.
Okay.
Because we'd have now, that would be city, it would be a road going through property that's City of Middleton property on both sides.
Right. Yeah.
So is that going to get curb and gutter and sidewalks?
Typically, yeah, this would be the trigger for that. I think I'd have to double check. It's been a while, but I think we collected half the money already from Misty Valley back when that was platted. But we couldn't do anything in terms of a full road.
Right,
That was
so
only
the
half.
developer would be paying for part of that road.
The other half. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so what we wouldn't have though is, this part that's not in the plat still would be outside what we really can do. Now, the Keneal Trail crossings right here, we're pretty close.
Right.
But that's something we'll have to try to figure out what our options are. Maybe the town won't care.
And in terms of, I know I've got people in Misty Valley, they're concerned, and I don't blame them. They're going to have Bell Farms going on one end of Bellefontaine, and then this one on the other end. Are they going to be dealing with constant construction? Or at least how long is it going to take to develop this area?
Oh, again, I'll leave that up to the developer. I don't know.
I can jump in, Sean. I'm happy to answer questions. My name is Chad Wibben. I am the developer of the site, and thanks for taking the time to look this over tonight. As Bruce said, this is preliminary, so we're here to listen to what you guys have to say. But I can answer questions that you have if I know the answers to them. And we have a 5-year phase plan here, consisting of 5 phases essentially. So there would be construction for 5 years or so. Maybe longer if things don't go as well as we think.
Okay.
We've been through, just so you guys have a background, we've been through about 6 committee meetings in the last week and a half or so, just asking for input. It was referred to you by the Plan Commission to get your opinions on certain things. So I'm taking notes as you tell me what you think is important that we will go back and try to incorporate into the plan before we bring it back to Plan Commission in a more refined form. So there is some questions on this plan because it is preliminary and it's not very detailed. So, I respect your questions, but it's good for us to get your input so that we can firm it up before we bring it back to Plan Commission. Staff notes on this particular plan are all very appropriate, and some of them are very self-explanatory with regard to notes on the plans and so on and so forth. And yes, all of that stuff gets included. There's very few things on here that I see as being potential issues. They're all very basic questions. So I don't really think we have any issues with or staff comments on this particular plan. Sean, did you do a lot of these yourself, or is this coming from another department?
A lot of what's in the orangish boxes I wrote, although some of that fell out from discussion with other staff. What's in the white boxes, somebody else wrote.
I see.
I don't know.
Yeah, so a lot of them
Usually, though,
are
if you
simple
turn
questions to
on-
answer.
Oh, sorry. Usually if in a PDF you turn on your commenting tool, it'll give the author per comment in the right bar.
Ted, I was wondering, I'm Susan West, I'm the alder for this district, and I've actually just acquired as part of my district, the Misty Valley portion. So I am getting lots of questions from them and I don't know them as well. Would there be a way that you and I could sit down and just talk about, because I've got questions that aren't quite relevant for Public Works.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd be more than happy to do that. I can send you an email tomorrow and we can set something up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think, I don't, Misty Valley has sidewalk that was installed by the developer on a vast majority of the frontage of High Road, but not the whole frontage, if I recall correctly, because there was some talk at one time about possibly putting a roundabout at Greenbrier or perhaps at Bellefontaine, which staff has indicated that that's not going to be required. I don't know if I could just make a few more comments. We did move Bellefontaine to, as Sean is showing it, we did move Bellefontaine to the west from our original plan per staff comments. We'll have to take a look at this limited access part of it that, that's a direct result of the change that we did to accommodate some requests that were made, including from the Plan Commission had numerous good ideas, such as different lot sizes. They want a variation of lot sizes. We met with the Sustainability Committee And as you can imagine, they have some different ideas than the Public Works Committee might have with regard to street size and sidewalks on both sides. I think those are the type of questions that would be really beneficial for us to hear, is that what street sections is Public Work going to look for? Is there sidewalk on both sides of every road? We do have a lot of connectivity, especially from the senior housing area. That is a path to the left. It was important to that developer to have connectivity to the parks. We will rearrange that to get more. Because of parks comments, the park is going to grow. So this is it's not a fixed thing right now. It's definitely open to discussion and input from all of you folks.
I would say from the pedestrian bike committee, they are very interested in what they call complete streets, which means sidewalks on both sides of the street. And we are going back and adding now as a city sidewalks on streets that don't have them on both sides.
And that
So I
was
think-
that was our assumption going into this. It was just sometimes there's some mixed messages coming from different committees from the city. So we're trying to kind of wade through the different ideas from different committees and figure out what we have to do to make the most people happy, I guess, is the best. 'Cause
Yeah.
we're probably not going to make everybody happy. And I'm not sure
It
how.
does- Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure how the city of Middleton, we refer to the committees. That's great. We're getting a lot of great information and a lot of good input from different committees, but some of the inputs clash. So I assume what that means is that we have to go forward with our plan, try and incorporate all of the best options that we've been told, and then the plan commission ultimately makes the final decision. I don't mean to ask a process question, but I just want to clarify what I'm assuming right now. And Sean can straighten me out if it's not the case, but that's kind of the way I view these current committee meetings at this phase of the project.
It is always a little bit difficult, right, to juggle all these balls, knowing that some of them just don't mesh. But I think you're right. Normally, a handful of things make it as far as the Common Council for tiebreakers. So if Plan Commission says, no, we got to have this, and Public Works Committee says, we have to have this, the Common Council gets to say what we're actually going to do.
So, the second egress to Pheasant Branch Road is definitely a topic that's come up, and I will confess that we have not looked very hard at that. We will look at that again. There's a lot of topography on Pheasant Branch Road and a lot of private residences that are kind of tucked in, as you can see in the notches in our plan there. Those are existing homes in the town of Springfield. And what we really have to look at is where another safe intersection might be located on Pheasant Branch Road because of the hill. It's a little tricky, but we'll definitely take a look at it.
And it feels like, this is a pretty good spot.
That was
things
put there
considered.
very intentionally because of sight lines and sight distances from that intersection.
So it
That's
feels
a
like this
current
gap is,
driveway too through there.
Yeah, there's also the
Yeah.
driveway to the parking lot across the road. I believe, Bruce, correct me if I'm
No,
wrong.
that's down farther.
that's
Well,
here.
I am wrong, yeah.
But yeah, we had some early comments on about safety and access onto Pheasant Branch.
Yeah, it feels like this is too close. And I think this is in a really bad spot.
Yeah,
And
the
so
next
your only
one's-
other gap is here.
That's
You
pretty
know?
bad too. From street view, it didn't look great, I should say. I looked at it today because I saw your comments, and I think we could look more in the field, but it just looks like because I saw there's a hill there that you can't see coming up from street view. Again, we'll look.
Mhm, mhm.
If you're
Is-
able to, go ahead, Susan, sorry.
Is there a way to get more access to High Road?
That's possible. We can take a look at
People
it.
on High Road.
We'll definitely can take a look at that as well. The idea of possibly switching the stormwater between the apartments and switching the stormwater where the apartments are might help that a little bit, but we have to look into the details of that.
Okay.
And I think there will be more stormwater on the northwest, most northerly west corner of the property. We have an area up there that's going to have to take on a little bit of the water, I believe. because it does go downhill toward that corner, Bruce.
Yeah, we've been discussing that.
Yeah.
There's a couple different ways to handle it. We're not sure. I assume that with your purple road, you don't want double-sided lots at all.
Well, this was a concept on a concept, if you will, right? So this would be backyards facing the major road so that they could at least share this driveway. But you'd have lots turned sideways to do it.
If,
There,
you know,
there'd still be internal connectivity, just not out to the main road from right here. Or I
Okay.
think the central one probably would connect.
if the overriding message is we should get rid of one of those connections, then we'll look at a way of doing that that makes the most sense.
I just try to
Yeah.
understand what you showed.
Yeah,
Yeah, so the idea was not having 3 intersections.
yeah, okay. Yep, so
More like
we'll
4.
adjust the plan for that too.
Yeah.
So after this meeting, other than the bicycle committee, and we've basically gotten input from almost all of the committees that we were referred to. And so, you know, like I said, then we're going to refine this plan, incorporating the suggestions that we've heard to the best of our ability and bring it back.
All right, that sounds fine. Committee, any other questions of either of these gentlemen?
I think it's good too that he does meet with Susan to go through her questions. It may not affect the plan at all, but she obviously is the older for the district and is getting a lot of questions. So I think it'd be good for them to meet with her.
I think that I apologize for not having done it already, Susan. It's a great idea. It needs to get done as soon as possible. And then if we, in the future, after some revisions to the plan and we get close to what we're looking for, to have a neighborhood meeting in Misty Valley, I'm all for that too, just to explain things to people, because obviously what shows up on a piece of paper is kind of hard to relate to real life at the end of the day. So I'm happy to answer questions about it.
Yeah, I think Misty Valley would really appreciate that.
There are a
Um,
couple, I mean, I know Carl is here and Brian is here, both from Misty Valley, so they might want to join you, Susan.
Okay. I think maybe just to begin with, the developer and I.
Let's start with
We
that and
could-
then we can go from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will say I've lived in Middleton Hills since the very first development. And so I'm really familiar with a similar type neighborhood.
If I can just point out one more thing before I step away, that this is very extremely compliant with your comp plan, which was just redone in 2021. So we're not trying to change the plan of the city with this development. I just wanted to throw that out there just so you guys have an understanding of what the comp plan says. Maybe you already do.
Thank you. That's helpful to hear.
All right, committee, any other questions, comments regarding this concept plan? Sean, you have what comments you need from us?
I jotted a couple notes, but I think the real benefit here is for, the developer and the development team, really. So I know they were taking notes too. And
Correct.
yeah, so I can get a few things back to the plan commission too.
Okay. Well, if there are no more comments, then I don't think we need any kind of a motion or anything on our discussion here this evening. I think if that's the case, we can move on with our agenda and thank the developer, Chad. Nice to see you again. Haven't seen you for quite a while.
Well,
And proceed with the rest of our agenda.
Sure. Or unless, Chad or Bruce, you had any questions for
Anything else?
us? that
Well,
would be good.
the only question I would have is that, you have staff that's made a lot of good comments. If you're comfortable with those comments, we can certainly work toward those. If you have any other comments or something that we're not thinking of that are not on the staff comments, this would be a great time for us to know that.
That's true. I don't know of any others, at least at this time. It's, as things change, maybe different ideas emerge, but this was our best shot.
All right. All right. Thank you. I think we have what we need.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Have a
you.
great night.
Thank
You.
you.
Thanks.
Zoom in again here. Get closer. So the last item on our agenda really is just an official determination of deficiencies for the concrete that we intend to replace in this year's maintenance project. And so Tom Weber wrote a memo, as he does every year, encouraging the committee to take action to determine that the areas actually listed in the spreadsheet contain deficiencies. Now, we won't get to cover this whole area because of pricing issues in this year's bid, but we'll do what we can to chip away at corrections.
So all we're doing here is identifying the need for corrections, right? To take action on that.
Yeah, it's a statutory requirement as part of the assessment process that the Public Works Committee determines that these areas actually are deficient and in need of action, so that if the city takes corrective action, we can assess for them.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, committee?
Sure. This is Robert. Out of the 278 linear feet of designated repair work and 443 square feet and 19 sections and so on and so forth, do we have an idea of what percentage of that could be done given the financial constraints this year?
I don't have a good breakdown for you on that. No, I think of the replacements, we could get about half done what we had intended, and that was all based on the bid unit price. But then I don't know about mud jacking or saw cutting yet. We usually reserve some of the budget money just for that. And so Tom,
So that's the blue column is the number of sections to replace. That's replacement that you're talking about. You get about half of those.
yeah, so these are the replacements in sort of this color. So we have mud jack, appropriately enough, in brown, and then saw cutting for where there's just a tripping hazard at a joint where we can shave that off with a saw.
Sure.
But yeah, this figure of replacements, wow, only 49. That must be weeded out already.
Yeah, maybe because
Doesn't-
49 of those and 19 for the root replacements.
Yeah, so that's, and because we pay half price on those ourselves. So we have to make that a separate category now.
Sure. Oh, sure.
Yeah, that was my question. How do these get prioritized? Like which ones do you decide to do if you can't do them all?
I think he's trying to at least get done with areas, and then the really bad ones, of course, but mostly just get areas, sub areas knocked out.
Sean, do you know what the property is on the mud jacking column, that 325? That's 3/4 or better of all of the mud jacking that has to be done. Do you know what is that property? Do you know what that is?
I don't recognize that address now.
Okay.
John, doesn't Tom's memo state that it does state that the enclosed listing will be managed within the $130,000 allocated for the 2022 operating budget. So
Oh.
this is a culled list. Am I right?
I think that it is, because I have a hard time believing there's only 49 sections that need to be replaced.
Yeah.
But so I think he's already taken a stab at trying to get to this figure,
Okay.
but he's still acknowledging we may have to balance things a bit. I
Yeah.
think.
I mean, we have a budget and we also have a bid, so we know what it's going to cost. So
Yeah.
obviously we're trying to work within that.
Right. And then we have a revenue too that we're taking a look at to try to sort of maximize how much we can spend, how much we'll get back, and frankly, we don't know we'll get it all back all this year. So it's always a little bit of a three-legged race.
Sure.
I just looked up 2185 Deming Way just to make sure I knew what we were talking about. It's the little strip mall across from Costco. There's a haircut place in there, and I think in that
Okay.
same parking spot there's like a Taco Bell and a sandwich shop and stuff like that. So it seems to be on that south side of Deming Way, kind of across the entrance from Costco.
Okay,
I'm not sure why 325. I mean, that does seem artificially large, but
Yeah,
I
it,
can't
it
explain
might
it.
just be that they've got a bunch that's sort of tipped to drain the wrong way. That has happened before.
Hmm,
And then it needs to kind of get, tilted the right way.
okay.
Also, the area was flooded too, isn't it?
It
Yes,
was, well, all of all of that area
All of
was for a
that.
while.
what wasn't?
So this might have been more dramatically affected than some of the other areas, but
Could be.
Well,
Right, so would one like to make a motion that we need to take corrective action?
yes, I would make a motion that we, I guess, take the corrective action and kind of approve this list to start off with.
Yeah, so this will just determine that need.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Carl, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
I,
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have made our determination. I think that brings us to the magic moment.
This is Robert Burke. I would make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second to Robert's motion?
This
Sure,
is
this is
Carl,
Karen.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we stand adjourned. Thank you,
Wonderful.
ladies and gentlemen.
Happy spring break to everybody who
Yeah,
has kids, I guess.